Today marks the 4-year anniversary since the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade, leaving abortion access up to individual states. That decision led to Wisconsin being without abortion access for more than a year due to debate over an 1849 law. Other states continue to enforce bans impacting an estimated 27 million women. Since the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade, the abortion debate has shown no signs of letting up. And while Wisconsin doesn't ban the procedure, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin says their fight focuses on restrictions that limit access.
We need a state constitutional protection for reproductive freedom. We need statutory protections that increase access to care, not create barriers for patients and providers. We need health insurance, all health insurance plans, to cover reproductive health care, including abortion care.
Meanwhile, Pro-Life Wisconsin issued a statement to us saying, quote, "The right to life is not granted by any court or government. It is bestowed by God upon every human being from the very moment of conception, and no law can take that truth away," end quote. Senator Tammy Baldwin held a news conference Wednesday afternoon highlighting the story of a Kenosha woman who lost her first child in a medically complicated pregnancy. Then months later got pregnant again with more complications, including blood clots found in her uterus. She spent time in Illinois fearing she might need an abortion to save her life. This was when the procedure was on hold in Wisconsin.
We were at risk of the same situation unfolding again, and I decided to seek care out of state for the entire pregnancy due to the possible need for abortion care at any point in pregnancy. Illinois' abortion laws are much more flexible than Wisconsin's, and I desperately needed that flexibility.
Marcinka says she's grateful she didn't need the abortion and instead gave birth to a son. Right now, 13 states have bans or near bans on abortion, plus another 12 have heavy restrictions on the procedure.